Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and the Bloomhouse Collective. Happy New Year. And I am so excited to be bringing this guest. We were trying to make it happen, I think a few months ago, but we decided that January would be the optimal time for Sheila to come in and train the group on her expertise and who she is and what she does and how she blesses people with her investment and money knowledge. But I do want to share a little bit about Sheila. She is a dedicated financial advisor and coach on a mission to empower individuals and families to take control of their financial futures. She understands that financial wellness is not just about money, it's about peace of mind and achieving life's dreams. I couldn't agree with that more. She believes in a personalized approach to financial guidance, tailoring strategies. I love a good strategy. I'll tell you what, Sheila. To each client's unique circumstances and aspirations. She is known for her ability to explain complex financial concepts in a simple and relatable way, ensuring clients fully comprehend their financial options. As a dedicated coach, she goes beyond mere advice, providing ongoing education and support to help clients. Here she is today, blessing us to stay on track with their financial plans. Sheila is committed to helping people build wealth, reduce financial stress, and secure clients' ideal lives. She has mentored, I want to say this, she has mentored and trained hundreds of other financial professionals and assisted thousands of families and building a reputation as a trusted, I will say she's very trusted, resource for those seeking to achieve their financial goals. With over 6 years of experience in the industry, she has honed experience in budgeting, investing, retirement planning. We all need that. Tax strategies. We all need that. And debt management. Welcome, Sheila, to the group. I am so excited. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this stuff because, like what you said or what your bio said, is that you really break it down in a very simplistic way. And I'm excited to have you in here. We've worked together. I love seeing you soar and shine. And take it away, Sheila. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. That was an awesome introduction. I really appreciate it, Brooke, and I appreciate you. And I know that everybody that's in your collective, I'm guessing, has worked with you in some way, shape, or form. And so I just absolutely love what you're doing. And I think what we're both doing goes so hand in hand in so many ways. So I'm excited to see kind of how they mesh. But I appreciate you. And I wanted to just start out this conversation. I wasn't exactly sure if it was going to be more of a recording to watch later or if I was going to have some interaction in here. So Brooke, you might be my girl to talk to on some of this stuff. It looks like Lisa.
I love it.
And that's totally fine. Hopefully you get a lot from listening as well, but I am going to share a PowerPoint and go through some things with you guys today. So the first thing that I really want to talk about and what the title of this overview is when it comes to finances is bridging the gap, right? Bridging the gap between oftentimes what we know to do and what we're actually doing with our finances, because, I mean, we have Google, we've got the internet, right? Why are we not all just multi-millionaires? And I know, Brooke, you're asking the same questions. What we know the things, like there's not a lack of information out there. We'll say that. So bridging the gap between maybe what we know or the resources we have and what we're actually doing with it. So that gap, I don't think, is lack of resources or education anymore. I think it used to be, for sure. However, I do think a lot of that gap is several things, which we'll touch on today. The first thing being mindset. So it could be mindset. It could be, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs around money. All of those things definitely play a big part in our financial journey. And so when we talk about the guide to financial freedom, we're going to talk about a roadmap to getting to financial freedom, which, Brooke, I thought you'd like because you like the guides, right? You like the steps. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the importance of that financial plan and of having that roadmap, and then also some simplistic things too, because I know a lot of different people. Maybe you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Maybe you still have that side job or that W-2 income, and you're starting to get into entrepreneurship, or you want to build a business, but you haven't taken the leap yet. Regardless of where you're at, maybe you're a multimillionaire, maybe you've got 10 bucks and you're like, I want to start investing something, right? I am more than happy to guide you, right? You know, whether you're the multimillionaire or the $10 and all the people in between. So hopefully, regardless of where you're starting or where you're at right now, I tell people all the time, hey, you don't have to be sick to get better. Our financial journey is always growing and expanding, and there's always next levels, just like our personal growth. So also everything I talk about today, I'm going to use the money picture side of it, but you can apply this to pretty much everything in your life and your relationships and all those things too. It goes hand in hand. So before I share my screen and get started, I will just share with you all too. When I first came into this business, I never at all saw myself becoming a financial advisor. I think that's really important to note because I talk to a lot of people day in and day out that tell me, I'm just not good with money. I just, it's just not my wheelhouse. Like my spouse handles that, whatever it may be, whatever these limiting beliefs are that we have. So I want you to know that when I came into this business, I had no desire to know anything about the stock market, quite frankly, or to know really much about, budgeting and this and that. And like all of that stuff just seemed so far away for me. But what I did love was the ability to have financial freedom, right? Like to me, that lights me up. Freedom is one of the top values of mine. I know you too, Brooke. It is one of the number one things that is so important to me in my life. My family, but also super close to that is my freedom to create the life of my dreams. And I truly believe that every single person on this call, every person listening in later on, you deserve to be wealthy. You deserve to have a rich life, right? And some of you might be like, oh, I don't know, my gut just tensed up a little bit when I heard that word wealth, right? Or when I heard that word rich. So that's not something I can go deep into today, but that's, if you get nothing else out of this conversation, think about what is wealth to you. And even beyond that question of what is wealth to you, think about, are you willing to allow yourself to be wealthy, right? Are you willing to allow it? Because it's going to be a lot of unlearning versus learning, right? In this conversation. So I think a lot of the time we want all the knowledge, we want all the outside stuff. Here's what I should do. What should I do? Sheila, guide me to how much should I save? All of those things. However, I'm going to really, really encourage you all to step into your power because you have the answers. So it's more, what do I need to let go of so I can create this wealth for myself? So I just kind of wanted to kick it off with that. Again, what we're going to talk about today is the gap of what we know to do and what we're actually doing in finances. And we're going to talk about the guide, the roadmap to being financially free, whatever that freedom, conversation looks like for you. Oh, can you allow me to share my screen real quick?
Yes, I apologize. Yes, here we go. There you
go. Okay, perfect. Sure. Technology is not my forte, just so you know, guys. So is this, can you see
yes.
money gap here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
You over so I can see you. Okay, perfect. So bridging the money gap, and we're going to talk about a few different steps that kind of goes along with this. So I asked you that question. What does wealth look like to you? What is your ideal life, I guess, would be my initial question. Now, a lot of people want to dive straight into, well, just tell me, should I do a Roth IRA or should I do a traditional, right? Like people sometimes want to get into their head about this kind of stuff, but I will tell you that the more knowledge, the more information I give you, the more likely it is that you go into analysis paralysis. And so we're just going to start with the number one thing, the biggest thing. Again, if you do nothing else, think about what does wealth look like for me and creating a vision and goal setting when it comes to your ideal life. It is crazy how much time we will put in to planning our next vacation, to planning our remodel, the next remodel we want to do on our home, to doing, all of these different things, but don't put even a fraction of that time into planning, what do I want my ideal life to look like? What feelings do I want to wake up with every day? how do I want, what are my values? What are my, what are my goals? What's going to make me feel like, man, I'm so excited. I'm on fire right now. And I just can't wait to go serve my clients or whatever it may be that you do. And so the first thing is a self-assessment. And this is evaluating what are my priorities? What are my values? What is important to me? What's the vision of my life? So what this can look like, by the way, is I would go kind of abstract first. And what I mean by that is, start off with you wake up in the morning. What's your day-to-day life look like? What are you doing? Who are you spending your time with? Are you traveling? Are you speaking? Or, what does that look like day to day? And these, to give you a little bit of a guide, I don't have a ton of time to dive super deep into all of this, but I'm going to give you again the roadmap. And if you have questions, you can always reach out. But I like to use the 5 F's, which are faith, family, fitness, finance, and of course we have to add in fun to that too. That's my thing for 2024, by the way. This is like fun, enjoyment, all of those things. I think again, the way I grew up, especially around money, you guys, I was told you've got to work really hard for your money. My whole life was hero's journey, right? Like I watched my mom work 2, 3 jobs at a time just to make ends meet, to provide for me and my 2 older brothers. And I remember the out of debt, in debt, out of debt, in debt, out of debt, in debt story. And I had a totally bad taste in my mouth around money. As far back as I can remember, we always struggled when it came to our finances. And when I came into this profession, I realized that I could completely flip that script just by changing my mindset around what this could look like. So I think fun and enjoyment is a huge part of that. We don't have to be on a hero's journey, right? We don't have to, I made all this money because I worked really hard for it and I put in all of these hours. That's an old story. That no longer works, especially for female entrepreneurs. That's really not that's not the script that we have to follow anymore. And so when we look at these categories here, this is just an outline you can use to break it down when you're creating your ideal life and your vision. And I would encourage you, if you have a partner or a spouse, to create your own first and have them create their own and come together and see what overlaps and what that looks like as well. So vision and goal setting is super important. And really this one thing will completely shift everything for you if you just plan out a vision for your life. The second piece is financial education. This is huge. So why is a financial plan even important? I know for me, again, I didn't have any background or knowledge in financial services or education in general. And this is huge because financial illiteracy is actually the #1 economic crisis in the entire United States. #1. Huge, huge, huge need for financial education. This is a whole nother conversation, but I personally believe that the industry doesn't really want most people to know about it. So again, different topic, different conversation. However, it's you, and this is a lot of probably the reason that you all are entrepreneurs, right? You're like, if it is to be, it's up to me. Why am I depending on, the government or society to tell me what to do or whatever it may be? This is getting financially educated. This gives you a leg up to make sure that no matter what happens outside of you, that you get to drive the bus, right? You're not just a passenger thinking, well, I don't know, hopefully this works out. Cross my fingers. I hope Social Security is going to take care of me. Maybe my work will give me that pension someday, right? Like those days are gone. That was me too. I was told you go to school, you get a good job, don't rock the boat, don't take any risks, and hopefully the company you work for will have a great retirement plan or a great pension, and you can retire and just get by at 65 someday. So that was, again, that was the path that a lot of us were taught when we were younger. So the financial education is huge, and this brings empowerment. Now, obviously, you have to put it into practice, but #2 is the education piece. So let me just talk about a couple of concepts. I'm not going to go too deep into these, but one that I had no clue about until I came into the industry and I really started my money journey and dove deep on this stuff. Rule of 72. Have you guys heard of Rule of 72 before? I think, Brooke, because I shared that with you before, but you didn't know prior, right? No, okay. So rule of 72. This is just basic math, basic numbers. So if you're not a math person, stick with me for just a second. I promise it's very simple. So what it is you take 72 and you divide your rate of return, your interest rate into it, right? And so if let's just be generous and say that the bank in a standard checking account is paying you 1% rate of return. 72 divided by 1, 72. So that means that it will take 72 years for your money to double. So this, when you use this rule of 72, this will tell you how long it's going to take for your money to actually double. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely do not want to wait 72 years for my money to double. I work hard for it, and I'd like for it to work hard for me too. Or I'd like to even just, have it come to me more simplistically, and just by having this knowledge, have it work harder for me than I'm even working for it. So then if we let's just look at 9%. That is, sorry about that. So 9% it takes 8 years to double. So by earning a rate of return at 9%, which by the way, on average, if we look back even over the last 20 years at the S&P 500, if we look at the market, right, the performance has been about 10% to kind of give you guys an idea. So you might be thinking, well, where do I get 9%, 10%, 12%? Well, that'll go into in a little bit as well. However, there are different things out there that you can invest your money into and are going to, I mean, it's honestly, it's more risky not to invest than it is to just put it in your savings. I had one of my clients, he cracks me up. Him and his wife, they've been clients of mine for about 6 years now. And so we get together, we do a financial review for them. And I showed him kind of the difference between different accounts and where he can put his money and those types of things. And he said, so you're basically telling me that if I just put my money in the bank, which by the way, there's trillions of dollars in the bank. Most people do, right? Because we don't know, because we're not educated on this stuff. So funnel it into the bank. It's like, you're telling me that I put my money into the bank and basically it earns maybe 1%. Maybe now we have high yield savings, those are doing better. But if it's earning around 1%, I'm really not being safe. I'm just, I'm safely losing my money, right? I think that's how we put it. Like, so I'm just safely going broke. And I thought, wow, that's a great perspective, right? Safely going broke when you're just putting it in the bank. But why do we put money in the bank? Why do they have trillions there? Because logically we know, wait, hold on a second. If I put my money into the bank and I trust them to hold my money for me, they're turning around and going and investing it themselves and getting way higher rate of return. But then when I want to come take a loan, or open a credit card, they're loaning it back to me at, the average credit card is about 29% on interest. So I get to earn 1, but I get to borrow it back from that same institution at maybe 29%. That just doesn't add up. So rule of 72 is huge to know as far as how long does it take my money to double. The other concept is what is your financial independence number? So financial independence number is where the amount of money that you need to have saved to where you don't ever have to worry about working again, which is huge. So imagine waking up one day and realizing money is completely behind you. You have complete peace around money. And this will help with your vision, by the way. If money was not even an object completely behind you, what would you be doing? Who would you be? Who would you serve? What is the difference you would make knowing that money is completely behind you? And so that's the financial independence number, is how much is that, right? A lot of us say, oh man, I can't wait to get X amount of dollars in my bank account. We have a teenager, by the way, and he turned 16. He's driving now. It's insane. He just got his first job on Sunday, and he's working at the car wash. Then that song just plays in my head. But anyway, so he comes home and he's like, I want to save $10,000. Like, that's his goal. He's like, I want to save and invest $10,000 this year. He's working part-time. He's plays football and he's in school and everything too. But I said, that's awesome. What does that mean to you? Right? Like, what does $10,000 actually represent in your life? Because if you're doing it for the money, it's very rare that I see someone actually get there. if it represents something, right? It represents, okay, this is I have the option to choose if I want to retire or not. Do I want to work? At what point do I want to work because I want to versus because I have to pay my bills? So I ask people, that's a piece of determining your financial independence number. If you want to have the option to stop working at age 50, awesome. Let's reverse engineer it and see how much do you need to have as a nest egg invested to then be able to draw from. And even beyond that, what I help my clients do is figure out how much do you need to start saving every single month to get to that number by the time that you want to. And so this is just a snapshot that gives you an idea. This also really amplifies the time value of money along with compound interest, which is how much do you need to save every month to get to $1 million. Now, this is by the age of 67. Now that's totally fine. Everybody's got different goals and dreams of where they want to get to. I am going to highly suggest that we shoot for a lower age and a higher number. However, if we were to just look at it with this, you can see at age 20, if you were to start at 20, you'd save $113 a month, and that would get you there. 25, 30, all the way to, if you're waiting until age 60 to start saving, you'd need to save over $8,500, almost $8,600 per month to get to having $1 million. So if for those of you that are thinking, man, I'm still young, I can start next year. It's okay. I'm nowhere near having the ability to retire and stop working. I'm only 20, I'm only 30, whatever it may be. There's never going to be a right time. And what if you started with $10? What if you started with 15, 20, whatever it may be? We're in such an instant gratification kind of microwave type of society now that we want results right away, right? And that social media does that to us too. We're like, wow, that person became an overnight success. How awesome if I could just do that, right? And there's a lot of comparison, but I would say consistency actually makes a bigger difference than doing everything at one time, right? Like that saying, go big or go home. I would actually say go small and be consistent. That's what builds confidence too. If you can set yourself up on a plan, which again, this is a part of the roadmap. If you know, here's my financial independence number, this is what I want to get to, and here's where I'm at right now, and here's what I can save. If you can consistently do that month over month over month, I guarantee you're going to be at that financial independence number, probably beyond it by the time you get there. And that's knowing ebbs and flows, right? So you've always got to course correct. But if you're starting out, whatever number it is, doesn't matter to me which number. People always say, Sheila, how much should I save? 20% of my income, 15, what does it look like? And I can, we can go through some general rules of thumb, but at the end of the day, this is your life. This is your financial roadmap. You get to determine how much is realistic for you to start with and go from there. The next one is cash flow analysis. So this is how do you determine, right, what that number is. So cash flow analysis is figuring out where is your money coming and going. If you're an entrepreneur, this is huge, you guys. So it's really for everyone, but especially if you don't have consistent income. I work with a lot of real estate agents. My husband is actually in real estate as well. And so you get those big chunks of money, right? And then there might be a couple months that you have nothing at all. And so it's like, okay, how do I navigate through this? So cash flow analysis, it's not one size fits all. It's going to depend on your income and how often you actually receive a payment and those types of things, but it's determining, at least based on averages, what is coming in and what's going out. I would actually say in a lot of ways, what's going out can be more important when you're starting this journey. So I always recommend that you go back and go back on the last 3 months of your bank statements. Just do me a favor and do that between now and next week. Schedule a money date with yourself and go back and figure out, what have I been spending my money on? Highlight, underline, write down any of the frivolous spending that you're doing. Now, this is not about guilt or shame. Don't beat yourself up. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong, right? It just is what it is. However, go back and just determine how much money am I frivolously spending. So outside of like obviously your mortgage, your groceries, those bills are things that are needed. But let's find out what that number looks like. And I also, this is, can sometimes be taken as harshly, but I had a mentor one time that told me, Sheila, if you look at your bank statements, that will show me what your values are, right? So we tend to say, I really value my family. I value, whatever it may be. I want to tithe. I want to give back. Whatever it may be. However, then we look at our spending and see what we're actually doing with our money, and that is actually what's going to tell us, okay, something's going on here, something's missing. What I'm saying, that's the gap, right? What I'm saying is important to me is not actually matching with what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And so the highest form of self-love really is to get down and into this. And yeah, this is the dirty, I call it too, right? Like, this isn't fun. It's not always fun, but it can be. The more you do this, like my husband and I, the last Sunday of every month, we sit down, we block out an hour, and we do a money talk. We have a money date. We talk about what went in, what went out. Okay, we spent a little bit more this month. What do we want to do differently next month? What does that next trip look like for us? We love traveling. We have a 3-year-old as well, and she's been on 48 plane rides because travel is a value that we share. We love it. We love the education that comes from it, right? So we've been able to do that because we are very, very intentional around this financial roadmap. And that cash flow analysis is a big portion. The next one is debt management. So I hear a lot of different things around debt. What I will say is most common is I have to pay off all my debt before I can save, right? And I think that's also something that sometimes our parents teach us, or maybe we get that notion from teachers, any influential people in our life when we're younger. But debt management, this is not one size fits all. However, I would argue that I think what we focus on expands, right? So if day to day you're waking up and the sole part of your financial roadmap is to pay off your debt, that's the only thing you're focusing on, it just seems like that would not be a very fun roadmap to follow, right? Like, that's just like, oh man, I just keep paying off debt. Also, if you're not building the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is an emergency fund, what happens if you pay off all of your cards and you've got no savings, and now your car breaks down, your water heater goes out? That just happened to us a couple months ago, right? So if that happens, then now what? Oh man, I got to swipe the card again and go right back into debt to take care of it. And so I think that, again, not one size fits all, but I do think that there are ways that you can split a dollar in a few different ways that are really going to support you in creating the life that you want. As far as debt strategies, I'm not going to go too deep into any of those today. You can always reach out to me. I can give you some resources on that as well, but I do help my clients with that too, and student loan debt, those types of things. The next one is emergency fund. So that's kind of what I just talked about. Now, rule of thumb, again, is about 3 to 6 months of income set aside. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm going to suggest more like 12 months of income set aside for just the inevitable. Life happens. Also, I have clients that will build an emergency fund and they will be devastated when they have to pull money out of it for an emergency. And I just tell them, this is amazing. Like, think about, you created this little nest egg for yourself, and you get to utilize this for the emergencies that came up. You're using it for what it's meant for, right? So the emergency fund is a big piece as well. Now, there are 3 different areas that you can put your emergency fund into, depending on your situation. The first one is you can hold it in the bank, which we've talked about. The next one is you can open a high yield savings account. This could be with an institution. This could also be this could be with a financial institution or with a bank. High yield savings accounts are a no-brainer. So if you're wanting to build an emergency fund and you need instant access to the money right away, yes, you do pay taxes. It is taxed as ordinary income when you pull the money out. But a high yield savings account, they are earned because of interest rates right now, you guys, you can open one up and it'll earn 4.75% APR. Yes, so I would highly recommend it if you need resources or thoughts and ideas on what would be a good option, feel free to reach out to me. But seriously, you could Google that, and that's very simple. It's not being invested, so there's nothing that you need to really dive into as far as that goes. And then there's also money market accounts as well. So a money market account would be another resource that's still liquid, still accessible if you need it, that you could utilize for your emergency funds. So I know I'm going kind of fast here. I just want to make sure I'm on time. I don't see the chat, by the way. Am I good?
Oh, Sheila, so your presentation is not going, the slides aren't going through. Are you seeing them on your end?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay, because they're stuck on our end. So it's
Oh.
just showing the first slide, which I'm taking a ton of notes and I'm
Oh my
following you.
gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. No, there you go.
Can
There
you
you
see
go.
it?
Yep, there it is.
Oh my gosh, how funny. Okay, well, I hope you
Yeah,
guys are
I was
taking
like,
notes.
oh, maybe she just, but it's fine. You're very clear and succinct, and it's falling. Your information is amazing. So don't.
It's good. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm glad you can see it now. But the next one is proper protection. And so, excuse me, proper protection is going to be things like life insurance, long-term care, disability. It is not surprising that a lot of people, gosh, I think the number now is 52% of people are not properly insured on any of those things. And it's not surprising just because, again, we don't talk about this stuff, right? Like we don't even talk about finances in general. It's this whole plan is one of the most urgent, non-important things. And for most people, it falls into that quadrant, right? Like, yeah, I should get that done, but I'll just do that another time. Urgent non-importance. And so proper protection is a huge, huge piece of a financial plan. I have clients that come to me, and I'll give you an example. I had this wasn't me, but one of my agents out in California. He had a couple come to him, a husband and wife. They went through the whole financial strategy process and they completed the roadmap. And they said, this is awesome that you cover all these different components. However, we just want to focus on building wealth, which is the next step. And the wife said, we only want to focus on that because my husband actually has a regular kind of 9 to 5 job. He has benefits. We're good to go. He has life insurance. We're all covered through his benefits through work. And so our agent said, yeah, no problem. We'll go ahead and skip. We'll just talk about investing. Just skipped everything else, went straight to the investing portion. And less than a year later, wife called back into us and said, will you please review my husband's policy that he had through his job because he passed away and they're not wanting to pay this out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like just my heart completely sunk knowing this. And it turns out what he had was something called accidental death and dismemberment coverage through his job, and he passed away from a heart attack.
My
So
mother-in-law had that.
really,
Yeah, so yeah, nothing, which is fine. She just didn't know, but yeah, it's so unfortunate.
it's well, thank you for sharing that. And it's actually when I share these types of stories, which unfortunately I could talk for hours about all the different stories I have, but it's crazy how we just don't know, right? It's one of those things where we don't take the time to learn about it until it's too late. And either we are suffering from an illness or whatever it may be, or our family member, our loved ones are, and now it's like we can't you can get the coverage it's like a backwards thing, right? You can get the coverage when you're young and when you're healthy, but when you actually need it, no longer accessible. And it's the same thing with building wealth, right? Start now and just act like it's not even there. So when you need it, you've got this huge nest egg behind you. And so that proper protection piece, I provide so much education on this because there are so many different types of life insurance. There are different types of disability. Long-term care, that's another big one. I don't know if you guys on this call have seen, if you've had an experience of long-term care, maybe with a loved one or a friend, but it is about 70% of people need some form of long-term care from the age 69 and above. Long-term care, what I'm talking about is what qualifies as long-term care is if you're not able to perform 2 out of 6 daily living activities, which is like toileting, bathing, those types of different activities that you would be able to do on a day-to-day. So long-term care, it does typically happen in our older age. However, I have had clients that needed to be on long-term care that were younger as well due to an accident or whatever may happen. So that proper protection piece is huge to establish. I also tell my clients, I've got a policy. If I can't see your policies and what it is that you have and understand how it works, that's the foundation of a financial plan. So if you think of this financial roadmap as a house and that you have a financial house, the two layers on the bottom, the foundational pieces of this is going to be emergency funds, liquid cash, right? And proper protection. Everything else we can build off of. And the reason
Can I add
why
to
is,
that, Sheila, too?
yeah, absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people are scared to talk about is actually getting life insurance on your child. And
Oh,
our
absolutely.
life insurance, I think you talked about this, maybe you'd set it up for some clients, is that it's not a morbid type thing, but yes, if it does happen, God forbid, like you should have that space to grieve, and you're not going to be able to work. I mean, come on, let's just be real. But also, it can act as a benefit to your child that they can take it with them and cash it out at some point. Is that correct?
Yep. There's different types, which I don't have slides on that, but I'd love to do even another conversation with your group too, Brooke, if you want on that topic.
I love that.
Um, but yes, so you're totally right. In my household, we've got four of us and we have six different life insurance policies. Just life insurance, by the way. That's not the rest of the thing. So there are different types of insurance. Our kids do both have insurance policies as well. And people do think, oh, I don't know, is that weird putting insurance on my child and all of those things. We're thinking like of the crime shows that you watch and that kind of thing as well. But it is huge. It is so big to have protection on your children. And there are all types of different ways that you can utilize life insurance down the road as well. I have a client actually that I just talked to this morning. She was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 4. She became uninsurable at the age of 4 years old because of the type and because of the severity of it. She is now, oh gosh, how old is she now? 47. And I was able to get her some coverage, but initially we weren't. So, thank God, like there are different carriers, and I work with over 197 different companies on the investment and the insurance side. So there are ways to get covered if that initial thought was, wait, what if I don't qualify? What's the cost? All of those things. But I will also say, if you're pretty healthy, I was just able to get $1 million in coverage for a 35-year-old woman who just had her first baby. Yay. And I think it was $36 per month on that. And so it's not what people think it is, right? So again, this is a part of going through this financial strategy, making sure you have the roadmap and figuring out what is the best for me. Life insurance is good for everyone, in my opinion. A lot of people think it's only if you have kids, it's only if you own a home, those types of things, but it is imperative for running a business. If you're like, I want to make sure that my kids can go to college, or I want to make sure that my debt is paid for if something were to happen to me, or really proper protection. I know I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but Brooke, you just like opened my mind to so many things. I think that proper protection, we think that our biggest asset is our retirement accounts, it's our home, maybe we have a really cool car, right? Like we think that those are our biggest assets, when in reality, our biggest asset is us and our ability to generate income. That is our number one biggest asset. How are you protecting that? People will get insurance on their home. People will get insurance on their cars, insurance on their phones, right? Yet they don't get protection on their own lives, which is actually the only guarantee, is that we are all going to die at some point, right? So biggest way to create generational wealth is through life insurance. I could start an investment account for you tomorrow. And, if something were to happen, it's not going to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars like that the moment that you need it. So proper protection is big. Building wealth on that note as well. This is one of my favorite areas too. I love the fact that I get to help people regardless of where they're starting, where they're at. I went through this whole journey, by the way, when I came into this business, and I was actually a client first. And then I just fell in love with all the information I learned and the ways to implement it. And I started coming up with these big goals. I came into my business at 22 and I thought, what would it be like outside of my investments and my retirement and all of that to have 100 grand saved cash? What would that look like for me? And what would I do and how would I feel? And, linking it to that compelling emotional vision that I set up. And then I went to, what if I could be a millionaire before I'm 30? What would that look like? Right. And so that ties into the vision and goal setting. But building wealth is, where can we outpace inflation? Inflation is a hot topic right now. Where can we reduce taxes? That's another huge, huge thing, and build wealth. And so I love to go through the different types of buckets. And this is what I draw out for my clients when we walk through their financial strategy and we put in this roadmap. But there are really 3 different ways you can be taxed. So let's talk about that for a second. There's tax now, which is going to be bank accounts, CDs, high yield savings, I just told you about, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing, where your money grows. However, when you do go to take it out, you are taxed as ordinary income. So tax now is very much short-term emergency fund. I got to access it immediately. Tax later or tax deferred is going to be traditional IRAs, annuities, 401ks, SEP IRAs, 403bs. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out, but pensions, you can see that on the screen. So tax later is going to be where your money grows, and it's not taxed at all as it's growing. When you do go to take that money out, you then pay taxes on the growth and the distribution on those funds. So let's say you have $1 million in your 401k. That is awesome. First of all, that's incredible. Happy to see that. However, when you do go to take it out, it is going to be taxed. And so realistically, depending on that tax bracket you're in, when you start to pull it, you may end up with about 700, maybe 600,000. And there's a really big myth out there that maybe you guys have heard that, oh, it's fine, I'm going to be in a way lower tax bracket once I'm retired. I don't, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the taxes are going to do, if they're going to go up or down in the future. But based on the debt that we're in, if I were to look back and project out the future, I'm going to say taxes may be a little higher. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you to figure out. But it is, just knowing that, right? Because there's a time and place for all of these. And I'm a huge fan of them all, by the way. I set all of these things up for clients. The last one is tax never, or tax free. I don't really want to say tax never. I call it more like a tax advantaged area, because you do have to pay taxes at some point, right? So this is where you're paying taxes on the front end, and then you're never paying taxes again. So think of this as, if you're a farmer and you have a seed, you plant that seed in the ground. Well, would you rather pay taxes on the seed, on the very small seed that you planted, or would you rather wait and pay taxes on the entire harvest, also at an unknown tax rate? You don't actually even know what that will be in the future. So a lot of people will say, okay, how do I structure this? Because I would like to just pay the taxes on the initial. This example here says you save 10,000 and you grow it to 250,000. Well, would you rather pay taxes on the 10,000 when you put it in, or the 250,000 when you take it out? Again, at an unknown tax rate. So we structure these in different ways, and all of these different accounts are there for a reason. A lot of people will say, well, I heard that this is better than this, and never do this. And I just tell people, I get it. There's the Susie Ormans and the Dave Ramseys of the world, and they're very cut and dry, right? Cookie cutter approach. Here's exactly what you need to do, and how you need to have your savings structured and what accounts are best. However, I just don't believe in one size fits all. And depending on your situation, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you run a business, there are so many things that you can utilize in these areas that will help you from a tax standpoint. But remember, the 2 biggest wealth killers are going to be procrastination, right? The idea that we have time, that we'll get to it someday. I'm going to figure out my financial independence number someday. I'm going to, start that emergency fund, put my money into a savings account, get my life insurance going, whatever it may be. So procrastination And then the second thing is taxes. That's another thing that will eat away. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. So also on that, I'm not a tax professional. I'm a financial advisor. However, I do work with tax professionals too to make sure that this is structured properly as well. So the last thing here is preserving wealth, which is number 8. This is going to be wills, trust, estate plans, guardianship, so medical and financial power of attorney, all of those things as well. So just making sure your ducks are in a row for the inevitable. We do pass at some point, making sure that you're not leaving your family with a lot of confusion and questions on what your wishes actually are. And if you have kids, huge, huge, huge too, if you have minors, to make sure, you know, it's figured out already on who's going to care for them if something were to happen to you and your partner or your spouse. So questions, I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but do you have questions or anything so far? I've got one more thing to share, but this is a little more interactive. So you and I, Brooke, will just talk about this.
Yeah, so I actually had lunch with the owner of the village. And she was saying that she invests in a I thought it was kind of cool. Let me see. I was going to bring it up to you today. It's a woman-owned hedge fund. Hedge funds. How do you feel about hedge funds?
Yeah, that can definitely, that falls under that building wealth category. And honestly, what we determine in the roadmap is what's your risk tolerance, what's your timeline,
Yeah.
right? I'd have to ask her, you know, what exactly,
It's
what's
called
the
Elvest, elvest.com. Do you know who that
Yes,
is?
that's a women-owned, it's basically you can go to that website and you can, just like you could go to Fidelity or Vanguard or any one of them, and
Work with them? Do you get to work with them?
No, so I don't work with Ellevest in particular. I do work with different funds though. So Ellevest is the platform, right? So like for me, Transamerica Financial Advisors, that's my broker dealer. Now
Gotcha.
then we also can set you up with different types of investments inside of that. So with hedge funds, right? You know, all of those different things within it. So
Yes.
that could be Fidelity. So Ellevest is the platform that you would use to
Gotcha.
go in and pick different stocks, bonds, those types of things.
Gotcha. And so again, how do you feel about hedge funds?
Yeah, I think that for the right, I mean, it depends on what it is that somebody is trying to achieve. But yeah, you could implement hedge funds into your plan for sure.
Yeah, cool. I don't know. She was talking about it and I saved it and I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask Sheila what she thinks about it.
It's so hard. Yeah, I get those questions a lot because we'd have to go through the plan and figure out, well, what is it? Is it a longer term? Like this is what I'm investing in more for retirement. I'm not planning to touch this
Sure.
for however
Yeah.
long, but
I thought it was cool because it was woman owned and I didn't really look into it. I just saved it and I was like, she's like, yeah, I put a little here, put a little here. And she does it for her daughter. And I just thought that was kind of cool that it was women owned.
that's awesome. Yeah, so hedge funds, she purchased hedge funds within Ellevest.
I think
So it sounds like there's some maybe in stocks and hedge funds and things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I
That's
don't know about it, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. Okay, so as an entrepreneur who, like, let's say they are middle grade, like their business is pretty established. Like, obviously, with you, the best thing to do is to get with you and kind of map these things out. But like, where would you say, as an entrepreneur, the best place to put your money would be? And it's so hard, right?
Yeah, like, again,
I
I
need to
wish
pay bills.
I'm not trying to not give you straight
I
answers.
know, I
Um,
know. And it's so general and I understand that. I guess, like, is it really building your savings first? And obviously it just depends on your goals, but
Yeah, I guess to give you an idea, I think the best thing to do, just again, this is general, but if as an entrepreneur, if I'm thinking of when I started out in my business and decided to do that full time, the best thing I would do is make sure that the emergency fund is established.
yeah,
And again, high yield savings, it's just like said, putting it just in a regular bank account. So why not just do
right.
that? And having at least 6 months, maybe even 12 months set aside there. And I would also establish proper protection. I
Yeah.
would get that insurance piece taken care of. Again, it's hard for me to say it, but even whether you have a family or kids or you don't, I think that that is an imperative piece because especially when you're an entrepreneur, it's all on you, right? Like you get to choose how much money you make or don't for that matters. So I would go back to the foundation.
I love
Really think
that.
of that. And those would be the main things I would start with. Again, investing's awesome. You're going to see you're going to hear some cool things about crypto and Bitcoin and all the different, like just different things you can invest in, right?
Yeah.
But just make sure that you've got the foundations established. I'm not against any of that, but it's just so many times I've seen people go backwards when they're like, man, if I would have just had an extra few months, I could have gotten back on my feet. Now I'm in all this debt and,
Yes.
so forth. So.
Yeah, it's always the unknown. It's the cars, or if you need actually something in your business, or your business doesn't do as well as you thought it was going to do, and there's so many factors and variables. Also, with the tax strategy that you put in place, what are a few tips for tax strategy? And can you hit on those, or can you?
Oh man, so many good things on tax strategies. It depends on how you have your business set up and those types of also if you have like a spouse or partner and how you're filing and what that looks like too. However, I would say if as much as you possibly can get into that tax advantage or that tax-free area that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Just because, and unless you're making a ton of money and you really need to reduce your taxes, in the current year, but
Yeah.
I would just say work with a great CPA that understands your longer term goals. Because
Right.
when you talk with an accountant or a CPA, a lot of the time what they are going to do is make sure that you are paying the least amount in taxes for that current year.
Yes.
That's it. That
Yes.
current year. They're not thinking about what does it look like over time, right?
No.
So a financial
No.
advisor is going to be more of the person that can work side by your accountant or your CPA and really help understand, okay, like for example, I have a client, she's 56, her husband's 57. We are looking at doing some conversions right now from the traditional into their Roth IRAs because their business, because of what they brought in for their business in 2023 versus the 2022. So
Yeah.
there's different strategies that we can utilize in that. I don't want to give any like particular,
Yeah.
here's the account you should invest in necessarily, but know that there's options, especially when you're an entrepreneur. I honestly, our whole system, I think our whole tax system was designed for entrepreneurs. Like, take advantage of it. There's so many great things out there. So I hope hopefully that helps a little bit too.
That totally does. Yeah, I am so grateful for you. And this was I just hope that more people work with you. That is my,
Oh, thank you.
and I try to tag you in everything that I can. And I wish we had made the decision, but we worked with someone in our BNI group, but, um, I, yeah, this was never given to me, and I was shown hard work, but again, if my dad would have invested his money, it would have been so different in their retirement, and they've experienced some hardship, and now I'm like worried about their long-term care, and we're having those conversations as an only child.
Oh,
And it's heavy stuff, because people don't, I love to talk about death. I'm like, I try to have everything that we possibly can around us. Um, Knowledge is power. But yeah, it can be really hard to have these conversations. So in closing, what would be your best advice in having these hard conversations with a spouse? Like, what if the spouse doesn't want to dive into this? What if there's triggers? Like, how do you help with that? And what do you suggest if someone's kind of seeing some conflict there?
yeah, not on the same page. And I
Yeah.
mean, well, first of all, it's putting yourself in their shoes, right? And having empathy for what it is what's happening for them, because it is all such a personal experience. The way I grew up is maybe, it might be on a surface level look almost identical to how you grew up, but the way I interpreted how money works and how it relates to my sense of self-worth or like
Yes.
whatever it is I decide to tie to that
Yes.
is totally different than your experience of it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just us as human beings. So it's knowing that, okay, they're a totally different person, my spouse and I. We had completely different upbringings or thoughts or feelings or beliefs around money. So it's giving them the benefit of the doubt and also making it clear to them that it is important to you.
Yeah.
And doing that work, you know, reading books, which I didn't even get into that, but right, but like reading the books and educating yourself and contacting people that you aspire to be like, wow, I have this mentor and they're a self-made multimillionaire. I'm going to just pick that person's brain and getting the knowledge. And ultimately, if you're going through a session, right? Like if you're wanting to go through a financial roadmap and lay all of this out, bringing them in, I tell people you can have your spouse there and we can just be talking, you and I, and they can just be there to listen,
Yeah.
right? Because you can make it about you, but inevitably your spouse or your partner is a huge, huge piece in your financial
Huge.
decision-making process. I mean, and all of those things. So even if they can just be there and listen in, they may start to come around. I can't tell you how many clients I've had where I'll meet with one person and I'll just say, bring your spouse with you. Let's just, I know they hate it. They're going to be bored. They're going to roll their eyes and not listen to anything I'm saying. That's totally okay. Just have them there in the room. And halfway through the meeting, the spouse is like, oh, I have this old 401k that I need you to look at, right? And then they start opening up. And especially when you start with your vision, I think that helps versus, oh my gosh, we need to go talk to an advisor. We need to go have a conversation with Shela because we're in so much debt. And this is a problem, right? Like if you're attacking them about it, then they're not going to want to do it. So if you're coming at it from more of a place of vision and I want to do this together, I want to do this with you, but also if you're not willing to, I'm going to still do that, right? Like this is still something that I'm going to still actively learn about and pursue. And I really hope that you'll get on board. I get we might not be on the same page at the same time, but maybe you could just listen and see a couple things that I would really like to do to improve our financial future.
I love that. I love that. Well, you're amazing. And how do people work with you? How do they get in touch?
So I was actually going to do this exercise with you, but I know we're up on time here. So let me exit out of this and pull that back up on my screen.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Okay. Okay, so here's my information. If you want to take a screenshot of it, what I'll also do though is I can just put
do you have
probably
that in the group? Like I'm going to post the recording in the group, send out an email, but do you also have like the ability to like book a call with you or yeah. Okay, cool.
That's what I was just gonna say. So what I'll do is I'll just put that link in your group. And
Okay.
it's a Calendly link. You can go in there. What I would recommend is just scheduling a 15-minute phone call. We can just have a quick conversation. Maybe you're not ready to walk through that complimentary, roadmap, which I didn't even mention. It is all complimentary, by the way, so no obligation. My job is just to provide the education on what might be a good next step for your journey. But we can have a conversation even if you're not ready for that. If you just have certain questions like what Brooke had, feel free to book some time and we can just do a quick phone call and go from there.
I love that. Shela, thank you so much for your time. You can find her also on Instagram. She has some really great resources. We did a Reels immersion. She shares books that are really good insight value. And you guys can DM her there too. But thank you so much, Shela. I hope that this year is so fruitful and you are so blessed. You are such a servant heart. And I am just very grateful to know you.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the same, Brooke. Thank you so much for having me in.
Thank you so much for your time. It means the world.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.